Hello, my name is Jonathan Forster, and welcome to the Multi-Story Thinking Podcast. I'm an interior designer and educator. My job is to improve quality of life and productivity by helping people to create beautiful and practical spaces to live and work in. The Multi-Story Thinking Podcast takes an educational slant to the interior design world. So sit back, relax, as we help unravel the mysteries of interior design. Today we meet Adam Parsons, who is an architect and director of Architects and Urban Designers APG. APG are responsible for a number of designs including The Wave, a surfing centre which opens this month in Bristol. I met Adam with my co-host Kay Hanson outside The Deck, which is an entrepreneur space designed by Multi-Story Thinking last year. We met in the cafe, which proved to be a little bit noisy. In this episode, Adam tells us the importance of collaboration. He reveals the triple bottom line of sustainability, tells us how sight and framing of views is a core starting point for his projects, and we discover where Adam goes to meditate.
What is design? It's something that I do ponder quite a lot because that's broad, isn't it? What is design? Design's kind of a creative process to an end product. So it's about, in my opinion, it's about the idea, the concept and the communication to enable someone else to realise it, more often than not, or an idea to then be tested with other people's input to diversify that initial sort of train of thinking and resolution into either a product or a building or a space or music.
And you're an architect. You are currently running, as you just explained, working on the Wave project in Bristol.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a bit about that? Bearing in mind we've got less than an hour.
Yeah.
I know it's a passion of yours, but you were just saying earlier that you've been working on it since 2009.
2011.
2011.
Yeah. Almost 9 years.
Yeah.
On that project. We started it. It was the founding idea came from a guy called Nick Hounsfield, and it's been his kind of baby, and it's his sort of dream from the very start. And I was fortunate enough to work with him from the beginning to start realising his ideas, and drawing them, and trying to create images that reflected the ambition. We tested about 30 to 40 different sites to see what would fit over probably about 2 or 3 years. So it started on some smaller sites, and we worked with the technology providers as their technology evolved to develop the layouts and the master plan and the thinking of where the buildings are going to go, where the lake's going to go, right from the concept. Yeah.
Can you just explain what the Wave concept is then?
Okay, so the Wave concept is really quite simple. There's a surf lake at the heart of the development. There's a series of gardens that surround it. And then there's a clubhouse that gives you the opportunity to dwell and enjoy the space and the activities that are happening. So that's the kind of core elements that go into it. The nature of the brief evolved, and we were involved in developing the brief alongside the kind of business case. And it was to give an education to getting people outdoors and healthy eating and healthy living and well-being. So there's that kind of education piece. It was to be available for everybody to use, so where all ages, all abilities, all backgrounds was kind of one of the core concepts. So it was about making sure that it's designed so that anyone can move to it. However able-bodied they are, they can experience it and get something from it.
Yeah.
So they were kind of the core concepts, was that it was an education, it was for everyone to come and use, and to get people outdoors fit and healthy and to engage with the
key part
sport.
of it, I suppose, is that I don't know how the mechanics work, but the wave generating machine that sends that wave out every few seconds. There's some videos on the website, so people look at it. It's amazing to see.
It's amazing actually, in the last 9 years that we've been working on it, how the technology has evolved. Originally there was one kind of technology provider, Then there were 2, 3, 4 kind of competing technologies, and they've all like forced each other to evolve more and more. There's now probably in excess of 10 different technologies that are actually being constructed at one-to-one scale, so real live projects that people can serve. There's been quite a few concept sort of technologies that were much smaller, and they'd had fluid dynamic modelling, and they were tested at 1/16th scale, and then 1/1/4, and then all that data was correlated to see if the one-to-one scale was going to work. So we've been fortunate enough to work with 2 technology providers and designed schemes and got planning for 2 different technology providers, one being Wavegarden originally, and then another one being an American technology called Surflock, who are completely different technologies, and it completely changed how you would master plan the whole site, from waves moving back and forth to waves moving down a lake towards you. And then we came full circle and we went back to Wavegarden, which is the Wavegarden Cove technology that we're using now, which is just so far advanced from the original scheme that we used, that we designed for. The one that we're using now, it's half the size. The frequency of waves are up from every 1.5 minutes you get a wave with the traditional technology to every 8 seconds now.
Wow.
So there's so many ways. It completely changed the business model, completely changed the way the clubhouse is going to work, which we had a real limit actually. We've got 1,000 square metres that we can build the clubhouse in the Greenbelt. So to make the most of that 1,000 square metres, we've taken all the circulation outside of the building. One of the briefs that was set at the very beginning was by the sustainability advisor, is a guy called Chris Hines, founder of Surfs Against Sewage and MBE, amazing guy, but he said the core principles for this whole project are to reduce, reuse and recycle. So those principles went throughout the whole project. What can we reduce? What could we reuse in the future, or what could be reused in the building? What can we recycle? What can be recycled in the project? So one of the first reductions that we did in the design was the lakes come down in size, but the clubhouse, because we only had 1,000 square metres that we could use in the greenbelt, we took all the circulation outside. So we've just got working area inside the clubhouse. So there's no corridors, it's just spaces that flow into each other. And then trying to get people outdoors. So it's not about just being inside the building, but it's about that sort of threshold between going outside, getting into the lake, experiencing the gardens, and not just sort of sitting inside of a building. So that was one of the major elements.
It's a unique proposition where you've got one of the major features of the design is a whole wave park, and that must change the way in which you approach it, because the building is sort of secondary to the primary function.
Totally. So the building, it's about framing the view. It's not about the building. If it's about the building, then we've done our job wrong. It's about providing some shelter to engage with the surf lake, which is the kind of the star attraction. It's all about that event and getting people outdoors and facilitating that and making it comfortable to enjoy it, and that's it really.
So I guess you had to collaborate with a whole bunch of other disciplines, landscape I guess being one of the main designers. Do you have landscape team within your practice? Or is it?
So the landscape architect is now part of APG. She's now joined us. It was originally working for another company and has now come to join us. And I think it's down to the synergy of the way that we've worked on this project, and the sort of mutual appreciation for an approach of placemaking. But the collaboration is much further than just the landscape. The technology comes from Spain. So having Spanish engineers and technology providers creates quite a different working dynamic to those that you normally work with just around the corner. So that came with a plethora of issues and challenges. That alongside a constantly evolving technology that literally changed from one week to the next. So the lake that we initially got planning for was nothing like the final size that they wanted it to be. So there was a huge challenge there. Then you've got all the mechanicals, the civils, the civil and the structural engineering of the lake had to be designed to suit our ground conditions, not necessarily the same as the Spanish technology provider. So there was tying that into how the master plan works. Then you had, then you've got kind of wayfinding, signage, interpretation, architecture, interior design. There's all different collaborations that are happening across the site from beginning to end.
Yeah, this is a project that collaboration is key on, I guess. Did you ever envisage that when you started out as an architect, fresh face, that you would be working on a project like this? Or would you consider more of a kind of...
Do you know what, I think at the time when I was... So my history was, I'm a surfer.
Yeah.
So I love to surf as a starting point. When I was 14, I did my work experience. 1 week in an architectural practice, actually where I still work now. And then another week in a surfboard factory down
so
in
this
Willicombe.
project is suited.
So I couldn't, at that time, which would have been in kind of like the late 90s, have ever envisaged designing surf lakes as a job. Like that to me was kind of like the perfect move.
That's something you just fantasise about as a child, isn't it? Without ever thinking it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But how does your experience of being a surfer, how has that coloured your approach to the design of the building?
So I think it really helps with trying to understand the core business plan and how a surfer kind of uses spaces, actually gets changed outside quite a lot of the time, and the view of a surfer's perspective on how you move through this project, how you move through the spaces, how you experience it, which is really useful on one hand, but that's only a small minority of the people that are probably going to go. And actually to sort of park that and to pull from completely different approaches to people that have never surfed before, that have kind of got an interest in they'd like to surf, but then they start thinking about it's winter time, how would they enjoy the whole process? So it as useful as my background is, it was really important to get other perspectives to create a much broader brief than just a surfer's approach to
it's become too niche, probably not very exclusive.
You'd have a car park and a surf lake, and lots of people getting changed in towels on the outside. And
save a lot of building costs.
So you mentioned you did your work experience at APG. What was your career path?
I was really lucky, I think, when you're 14 years old and you choose something to have a go at and you enjoy it. And you then get to 16, you've done your GCSEs, and you think, I quite like the idea of a career in design, whatever it may be. Making surfboards was still on the table at that stage. Then doing your A-levels and then deciding, right, go look around some universities. You're 18 years old, and I went to Portsmouth University because I was actually enamoured with the beautiful building that was bespoke designed for architecture students. It was really quite an exciting place to go. So when I went to university in my second year, I actually started working part-time back at APG in the times when I wasn't at university. So I was kind of working alongside studying. I did that through my whole degree, and then I had a year and a half working. Took a little bit of time off before going back to university. And again, when I was back at university doing my diploma, I was still working in parallel when I wasn't at university. And I think that would be my recommendation now in the current kind of climate of education, is that it's really important to run a bit of the real world practice alongside the kind of academia, and go wild with the academic stuff, lose yourself, like explore whatever you can, and then have that basis of working. We've got a couple of students in the office at the moment that have both been up at CAT and McCuntleth studying their part 2 whilst they've been working, and it works for both us as employers and them as students. They're getting that kind of, I'd probably say biased because it's the way I did it, but that sort of cross experience. I think it's really important.
The professional practice experience, isn't it? That's really useful.
I was extremely fortunate as well, because I did my final thesis in my diploma. I did an arts university in the city in Istanbul, and it was all about how could you use the university and arts for the sustainable urban regeneration of a derelict part of the city. We're putting in a 24/7 community that's constantly changing year after year. You're bringing new people, you're bringing new money, you're bringing new vision. You've got a sustainable population on site that makes it safer. You've then got the opportunity to showcase what a university is about, bring the public into it, and that was the focus of my final thesis. Which then, when I'd finished, I started working with Falmouth University. It was one of my main clients I was working with when I came out of my academic experience in parallel, which I think really helped sort of translate some of those creative arts ideas into real life projects. And I think that's an advantage of working alongside studying, is you can start to pair some of the academic research alongside some real life projects and get a benefit from both.
Do you think, you've mentioned that people using these spaces, I sense that that's quite important for you to get your head around of who the users are and what their expectations are and how to create the spaces for them.
I think there's a responsibility in architecture and all forms of design and construction that surrounds it. There's a responsibility to everybody who's going to come in contact with your work. You've got a real social responsibility and an environmental responsibility to make sure that what you're doing hopefully enhances the environment, enhances the experience of people that are using it, not to the detriment of certain factors, environmental factors and economic factors as well. It's got to work, and I think that there's a responsibility on design that's going to affect everyone that comes in contact with it, which is actually a really exciting part about the job as well.
Gives you some framework of constraints to work to, or objectives.
Yeah.
We mentioned earlier about sustainability, and I know that's something you're very passionate about. What does that mean to you? What's your take on that?
What's my take on sustainability? It's a big word, and it can be taken in a number of different directions. For me, I was introduced to this idea of the triple bottom line of sustainability, and I adopt that as my view on sustainability. And it's about balancing the environmental, the social and the economic sort of factors that surround sustainability. You can have amazing environmental systems and intent in the work that you do, and if it can have a social awareness as well and benefit the people that are going to come in contact with it and enhance their experience, it's brilliant. Those two initiatives almost need to be backed up with an economic sort of stabiliser to it, because without the economic balance, to achieve one or the other on the social agenda or the environmental agenda can be a real challenge. So for me, sustainability is about those three things coming together, and I think that's really important.
It's not just about, I guess many people think it's focusing on materials, but you're looking about a sort of wider context.
Yeah, so I think with sustainability, and as designers, we're placemakers. That's first and foremost. I don't think it's about the materials per se. I think it's actually about a form-first approach, because you can play around with the fabric all you want, but if you get the form right, you get an understanding of the wider context and the setting that you're within, and then you place carefully a building within there, so you can then experience from inside that building the outside, and it's in a well-controlled environment. You don't necessarily need all the other fabric parts sort of bolted on with renewables and so on. And then there's a consideration for the fabric and what materials you're using. But for me, it's about that form first. So the form first approach is all about the orientation. It's about the constraints of the land. There's a level part of the site, which is where the lake has to go. There's an approach to the site, which kind of starts to dictate where your building's going to be sited. That progression through arrival and experience. So that sort of set where the building goes, and just so happens that the view is out to the south. So there's lots of glazing to the south. There's an overhang which has been carefully designed, which has got a roof terrace on it, so you can sit up there and enjoy the views. But that also then creates shading for the summer, but it's set at a distance that then allows the winter sun into the building. There's an exposed concrete slab, which is just concrete slab polished, so we've reduced the amount of material that goes into it. That then acts as the thermal mass to help reduce the heating loads in the winter. It's a glulam frame with a CLT deck on top of the building. That reduces the need for ceilings, so again, reducing the amount of material that goes into the building. The walls are timber clad, and they've got wood fibre fill, Pavatherm insulation, so thinking about the quality of the material that goes into the building. So that's how the building's set up, with the form first and then the fabric kind of helping it, and then we've got some solar water heaters on the roof to help reduce the heating loads on the water because there'll be a lot of showers that are happening and high water load. That's the building. Now the lake has got concrete in it, and that's used for a couple of reasons: to fix the form of the lake bed so that the waves break constantly over it. Also to respond to some of the site constraints of the water table and so on. But what we've done with the concrete mix is included a large quantity of something called GGBS, which is a replacement for Portland cement. It's a byproduct of the steel industry. It's like the slag that's left over, which is ground down, put into the concrete, so we've reduced the cement concrete. We've then got fibre reinforcement in the concrete, which reduces the thickness from over typical sort of steel rebar. So there's lots of ideas that have gone all the way through to the landscape and the construction of the lake and into the building as well, that significantly reduce the amount of carbon that will be embodied in the project.
And are you calculating that as you go, or are you using well-used or trusted techniques?
Yeah, we're doing a carbon calculation at the moment. We know the elements that have gone into the lake, we know what's gone into the building, we're getting the information from Wavegarden, we know what's going into our landscape, so we're in the process of doing that calculation at the moment, and then comparing that to what would be kind of a more typical construction methodology, which doesn't have all the kind of sustainable thinking, so that we can at least draw a parallel to what it could have been and identify the benefits through the construction. And then that'll be continually monitored throughout the life of the building, so they can make sure that the intent in the design is being achieved over the period of the building's
What's
life.
the lifespan of that? What's your expectation?
A design lifespan,
Yeah.
it depends which element of the building or the lake that you're looking at. The overall, with a good maintenance regime, which is what it's going to need, it can keep going, keep maturing.
Yeah.
Obviously, elements will need to be replaced.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to put a figure on it because it depends which element you're looking at.
Yeah. I suppose you want that to be, like you say, a sustainable business that's going to be there and working and attracting people long into the future.
And there's also the offsetting as well. So part of the carbon calculation is to identify how much carbon's gone into the project, and then there's a series of offsets with a view to minimising running costs and offsetting the carbon that's already been embodied within the project. So, for example, all the energy that's being used in the site, it's not being generated on site because it would take quite a large parcel of land of solar panels to generate it directly, but they're working with a renewable energy company, so we know that all the energy that comes in is from renewable sources, so wind, solar, tidal, which is quite a nice story as well.
Yeah.
It's clear that you've got an understanding of almost all aspects of the wave, and you've worked on it for a long time now. But I guess that's not the only project that you've been working on for those last 9 years. You mentioned Falmouth University, so there are various sectors that you're involved in as well. Can you tell us some of the other sort of sectors and projects that you enjoy, or that you kind of spend your time?
Yeah, well, you're right. The wave isn't the one and only one, and far from it. It's one of many projects. I guess the kind of core areas that we work in is, as we alluded to with the university work in education, it's always a great sector to work with, and it is really enjoyable because you get a lot of people coming through the spaces and lots of different minds to design for, from the people that work in the university to the students and everyone who visits in between. That's a really nice and exciting sector to work in.
Yeah, I agree.
Also work in the residential sector as well. Some social housing, which again, that has the benefits of what we're talking about environmentally and socially and economically in projects like the Wave and University. It translates directly across to social housing and all the way through to one-off bespoke individual properties. So there's that sector to the business that we work in as well. So I'd say they're kind of the core three.
Which are your preferred sectors? Which do you get a real kind of... Obviously there's the Wave, which is your project if there ever was, but what kind of gives you the best sort of feeling?
So I wouldn't say it's a sector, I'd say it's the site as much as anything.
Yeah.
It's the site that makes it. We're doing an amazing apartment block, which for some people it's not that exciting, but the views across the beaches and a golf course, you can frame different views, and it's about working within the context. And that's a residential scheme which I'm thoroughly enjoying at the moment, which is completely different to a commercial project, and actually then the quality of the detailing and the thought that goes into it is completely different you're designing for a few people to be living in there, as opposed to thousands and hundreds of thousands of people coming through there a year. So I wouldn't say that there's a sector. I'd say it's down to the site and the project.
Yeah. And do you work across all stages?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. It's important because what you learn in the latter stages informs a brief in the next project.
Yeah.
And for me, the detachment from those two doesn't actually benefit the whole project cycle. You're learning on every single project that you do. You can come against the same problems time and time again, but again there'll be different solutions to suit different constraints. So I think that whole process of brief, concept, design, get the technical resolution right, build it, tests the quality of your communication skills as well along that way. You start to learn how you can put a drawing pack together for different clients as well. Different clients require different approaches to how you illustrate your ideas.
Absolutely.
And I think that comes with a whole different challenge, project on project, which is quite exciting. It keeps it fresh each time.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you collaborated with many different disciplines on the Wave, and do you see that as a benefit to some of the other sectors as well? So your residential projects, do you collaborate with interior designers? And
No. I think collaboration is key. I actually think collaboration is key in the world of business as well. We're entering into some uncertain times at the moment. It's we've got Brexit coming up. Not that I want to talk about that, but the idea of collaboration from a business side of things means that you can stay nimble. You can have your core kind of vision, your core strength about what you can bring to a project. As an architect and a lead designer, we can then pull in interior designers that we think share a good vision for a project, or urban designers that we think have got an amazing strategic vision that would suit certain constraints within a project. So I think collaboration is key, not only for the benefits of a project, but also for the benefits of the commercial aspect of a business. You can offer a hell of a lot more if you put together a really good team for a project than you could if you're just a large, immobile organisation.
It's more agile, isn't it? More nimble, as you say.
Yeah.
Within the practice, I'm assuming you've got teams of people working on projects. What kind of roles have you got in the teams that you're working with?
The structure of the practice. So we've got directors are kind of involved with all the projects. So they're split, and there's an overseeing role for all the projects, and it's kind of design-led by directors. And then we've got associates that support directors, so you've got 2 levels of seniority in a project. And we've got architects, part 1s and part 2s. That's the structure, basically. Every staff member doesn't necessarily just work in one sector, so that experience is shared across the different sectors, which I think, especially as a young architect and a young designer, it can stimulate you and give you a broader range of experience, as opposed to just being kind of stuck doing one sector and getting bored of it. And actually, you can then take ideas from certain projects and start to move them across the different sectors. And I think that with the collaboration of people, so you may have had an amazing experience of working with someone in education, but you know that their design philosophy could align with the client that you've just got for a one-off house. So you can almost like use some of the skills and the relationships that you've put together over here on one project, and then take it across to another project. I think that's a good example, and I mentioned it before, but Ian, who's the landscape architect on the Wave, has now joined APG as the landscape director, and it helps us to have a more of a placemaking approach, but still very much working with other landscape architects and urban designers that we know as part of our experience. That doesn't prevent us from working with others. In fact, it just enhances it, because it can help with the collaborative approach, because you've got someone speaking the same language in many ways.
Absolutely.
You just mentioned placemaking there. What's your definition of that? And just, I guess, for layman's terms, and what are the key components of making a place?
So placemaking. And different people do have different views on what that is. My description of placemaking would be a slightly more considered experience than if you take a housing estate. Let's just try and give an example to it. Take a housing estate. You're quite often going to lots of housing estates, and you could be in one anywhere around the country. There's not that kind of response to the context that would make you think of it as a place. And there are others that you think of that have a character that defines it as a place. So on a master planning sort of urban scale, you could think of it like that. From a slightly smaller scale, you can think of if you go into a chain of pubs. You could be in a chain of pub. You go into that little country pub that's got an open fire and views out across the rolling hills. That's got a different quality of place. So it's about, for me, placemaking is about responding to the context in which you're in and being able to create something that's identifiable as a place. And again, that could be with a company. It could be if there's a brand identity. Yeah. It's taking that brand identity, but then actually locking it in place. So let's think about let's go back to that chain of restaurants. We've got a chain of restaurants, similar menus everywhere they go, but the experience of going to one in Bristol could be that you're by the harbour side, you're looking out at the views, and there's some artwork on the walls that references Suspension Bridge or Banksy or common.
It's a few different strategies there.
Yeah, but it's about place. Yeah. It's about tying. I think, to make it succinct, it's about tying the experience with the context.
We talk about placemaking in interiors, and often interior design students are working in buildings by architects, trying to make the spaces function for the occupants. Do you get involved in that level of detail at all?
Yeah, because I don't think one exists without the other.
Yeah.
I don't think they can. You can't design a building if you're not thinking about the end user.
I think that's the issue, isn't it? That in some cases, interior designers come into buildings which have been designed by architects, and the architects have little connection with the end user.
Can happen.
Yeah. And we come in and try and create something that maybe the building isn't quite ready for.
We talked a lot about collaboration, and it's about the time in which that collaboration happens.
Absolutely.
And again, I think it's project specific as to when it can happen.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge benefit if you can do it right at the beginning, at the briefing stage, because then you can work in harmony together through the whole project. But having said that, if there's a strong concept, I'll use the wave again with that reduce, reuse, recycle as the basis for your decision making. You can take that so far through a project and take the principles of, for example, taking circulation out of the building and you're left with the spaces, and then bring someone else in and say this is where we've got to, and then you see this new energy, this completely different view on the concept based on the same principles, just put an extra layer of life into what you've done. Some people find it extremely difficult to let go, and they'll want to argue and say, no, that's not aligned with my vision.
Do you?
I think we're all guilty of it, because you've all got a view. I think I'd be lying if I said I'm not.
Yeah.
But if you can relax a little bit and actually give someone, and it comes back to working with people that you trust and that you have aligned visions with, that you can just let that kind of evolve and be able to let go a little bit. It's amazing some of the benefits that you see of how your architecture, for example, can suddenly spark to life, or a bar location has been moved from where you originally thought it was going to be, and then the rhythm of the space changes to something that's far exceeds what your initial concept was.
It's interesting you talk about layers. The way that I feel about how architecture and interior design play out together is just adding that extra layer of finer detail, but a more intimate detail or level or layer that you can integrate into a space.
The exciting bit then is when you've kind of got those layers, and I think one of the biggest challenges is then pulling that back together, and it comes back to that level of coherent information that you're then supplying someone to build with. The worst experience I've had is when they don't align, and then you've got this conflicting information, and it's having the time in a program to be able to go through that process and then pull it back together and start to think about those junctions of where structure and finishes come together and how they finish, and make sure that when you're setting up the structure of the wall, there's an allowance for that and a tolerance for those finishes at the back end.
Yeah.
But having that time in the design period when there's all the commercial pressures of it's got to get to site, you've got to get this going now, the contract, if it's not signed, the funding's late, and you've got all these external pressures, but it's finding a way to try and make sure that level of detail is taken through to the end. And I think they're probably the most successful projects when you're able to do that.
And I think as well, when you talk about the whole project cycle, that's definitely informant on the next project.
Yeah.
Where you come to those decisions when things are on site and those things don't quite work, then it absolutely kind of evolves back into the next project and feeds back into those allowances.
Those lessons learned. The lessons learned when you get an M&E duct nowhere near where you thought it was going to be, where you've got trunking, piercing walls left, right and centre because there's been a decision for it to be done on site, and then you're undoing that work, and then you're having to make good the defects on site, and then everything starts to get delayed. I quite often think about project cycles and how pressured we are to get to site, and then when you get towards the end of the project, the challenge is to start undoing some of those decisions that were made and like really early on, and then you're trying to rectify it. And then that year afterwards where you're trying to get things right, and all the time that takes, and the challenge of getting people back and to do it with the quality or different teams, and you just think those extra few weeks up the front end could have really saved this. And
that sort of project fatigue, which I think you probably recognise, and I get it. If it goes on too long, all that energy you had at the start has dissipated, and you're ending up tidying up the.
But that's where certain collaborations can really help, because you can get to that stage, and then you can have like a new lease of life that comes in, and it changes your perspective, and you've got someone else running alongside you, and you kind of pick you back up again.
What would you advise yourself, just for our students? What's been the best sort of decisions or experiences that you've made to progress you in your career?
I alluded to it before about working alongside education. I think that is really important. And to have that kind of work ethic that sits alongside an academic rigour. I think those two things together would definitely be something that I'd advise. If I was advising myself, to be honest, I'm pretty happy with the route I've taken and the way that my career is progressing. But one thing that I've experienced is I've been in one practice and I've seen one way of doing it, and I would advise people to actually go out and experience different scales of projects, different scales of practice. I'm fortunate that with APG, the approach to how we work as a team is you do move across lots of different disciplines, and small scale work and large scale work. But I think one of the benefits we've had in the last year, we've increased by 50%.
Oh, really?
And in that recruitment process, we've brought people in from all different backgrounds and different skill sets, different cultures. And although I haven't had the benefit of going out and experiencing it myself, bringing that knowledge in and then trying to make it open-minded enough to change things and to use that knowledge for the greater good and not be too stuck in your ways, that would be the advice. So get a raft of experience as best you can, try different things, work alongside education where you can, so you get that kind of parallel view. And just make sure you're enjoying it. If you're not enjoying it, change it. But if you are enjoying it, keep going. So I feel quite lucky with the way that my career is progressing, and I'm fortunate enough to be enjoying it and to have fantastic projects. And I think that's the key to keeping yourself stoked on the design, is to enjoy what you're doing. And if you're not, then you've got to change something.
Just thinking about surfing, are you one of those guys sitting out back, as they say, waiting for the big waves, or are you at the front like me and able to get on the board?
So
I think I know which one.
So I've spent the last sort of 20 years travelling, looking for waves and surfing. So to be honest, I'll be anywhere where there's a wave, whether it's a good day or a bad day. If I can grab half an hour in the sea, whether it's rubbish weather, rubbish conditions all through the year, or whether it's amazing, fantastic conditions, I might stay in a bit longer then.
What do you like about it?
Well, I think the healthiest part about it is when you're sat, as you say, out back, staring out to sea, you're meditating because you're just looking out to the horizon, just scanning the horizon, and all you're thinking is one thing. Where's that next wave coming from? Where do I need to be? Where's the next wave coming? And that kind of repetitive nature just clears your mind and refreshes you for whatever's coming next. The thrill of riding a wave, the adrenaline, the skill of putting yourself in the right place, it all coming together, you can't beat it. It's unrivaled, and that's why you then paddle back out and you wait again. And that's how you can meditate for so long, just staring out at the sea.
So when the Wave Centre opens later this year?
In November.
In November,
yeah.
I'm going to go and get some lessons, and in a year or two I'll be out back.
Hanging out the back.
Yeah.
Well, there's 3 zones to it. There's a beginner zone, an intermediate zone, and then an experience part of the way. So you can progress your way
Yeah.
up through, and I'll see you out in the back corner in experience.
Okay. I look forward
Right,
to
in
that.
no time.
Yeah. Thanks to Adam for taking the time to talk to us. We spent a lot of time discussing the Wave, which opens this month in Bristol. There's some links to videos and more information about that building and the site and the surfing that can be had on there. It's quite a spectacular experience. There's some links in the show notes. A great aspect of Adam's work is his understanding of materials and how they impact on the construction and also the sustainability of his projects. Key lesson here is to really get to grips with the materials that you're working with and understand the impact they have and how you can utilize them. Adam mentioned collaboration being a key part of the way in which he and his company work. It's certainly a skill set to develop as we are increasingly involved here at Multi-Story Thinking in projects where we're collaborating with lots of different companies. If you've got a project in mind, we can help you put together a team to deliver that. So give us a call and we can see how we can help you. Thanks to Kay Hanson for her co-hosting role and her planning and organisational role during the setup of these podcasts. I'd like to thank Mark Frith for the music. And of course, Dave Clark from I Am The How, who's helped me massively with the setup of this podcast. I'd like to thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Please send any comments through. I really appreciate any feedback. That's it for now. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Jesus.